All right, friends, welcome. And I have the honor of speaking with Jean Decode again today. There's a lot going on right now, as usual. We've got earthquakes, tsunamis, weather disasters, and that's just the surface stuff that many people see and hear about. But we're also dealing with the spiritual war in other realms. And I'm personally seeing it ramping up a bit. We look at paranormal situations like the Miami situation recently, and the cabal has taken its tentacles all over this planet. There's not one place on this planet that's not touched. And because of this, cleaning this up is not going to happen overnight. And I know people get frustrated, and I kind of call it the McDonaldization process, where we think everything has to be immediate. But what we're looking at is we are living in mortal time, which sits inside of cosmic time. And in this process, humanity has to learn how to discern. The truth is very liberating, but only the true, real truth is liberating, no matter how inconvenient that truth may be. And this is what I appreciate about Jeannie, doesn't hold anything back. I think we all know that what is at stake is humanity. Human souls are what's at stake. And so, with that, what can the average person do to help themselves and to help others in this spiritual war? So, thank you and welcome, Jean.
Yes, thank you. I recently had an interview, and I'm like thinking to hold things back depending on the group I'm with, because there was certain things I say that human beings we've been farmed for thousands of years. Our minds have been it's gotten towards generational. It's in the genetics. It's gone generationally deep to where I've recently watched an interview of Kathy O'Brien. I think it was with either Patriot Underground or Michael Jaco or something like that. But I wish I could remember what channel. I watched so many. But anyway, she was indicating that for when people get Mark Ultra, it gets to where it's gone from down the family line, especially in the Masonic families that are in the Masonic lodges, that it goes down the line generation after generation, and they traffic their own children and sell them into this Mark Ultra program, and that they abuse them sexually before they're 5 years old. And it has to do with the way the brain is developing. And then often at 30 years old, she said, and I noticed this with myself, is that I was pretty much, I was intelligent, but I had difficulty reasoning up until suddenly at 29 years old. Things that seemed very hard for me, like I had a lot of electronics experience, and I was my boss in the Navy, the person that I worked for directly above me, was trying to teach me how to troubleshoot electronic problems in equipment that had, sometimes multiple cabinets you had to figure out. And I couldn't logic myself through it. And then it was during a 1 week period where for 2 or 3 days I couldn't do it at all. I couldn't even understand, because I don't see why you can't see the basic logic in this. I know you're intelligent. And then suddenly it became ridiculously easy for me to see it. And it's because a whole bunch of neurotransmitters and large connections in the corpus callosum between the right and left hemisphere turn on that we're not on. And it's even more true for men than women. It's why they usually in the Mark Ultra program, they terminate in Mark Ultra at 30 years old, because they will wake up and break free of the programming. But as this goes down the generational line, it winds up that it's extremely hard for a person to break free from it. So if they're a valuable asset and they're multi-generational, they can watch them, and they don't always have to terminate them unless they're an alpha, because alphas are pretty much the alpha in the Mark Ultra program is just a sex toy. A lot of your country singers, have broken free. When I read the Mark Ultra manual and phone book in Hawaii, looked at the phone book, it's like one per block, pretty much every city on earth. And it had Tammy Wynette's testimonial of how she got broken free. A guy broke her and broke her out of it, just like the other lady I mentioned, and she was deprogrammed and all of this. But for the alphas, the people that are trafficking these children and young people, they prefer them young. They don't like them old, because as we get older, you get enough experience to where what terrified you when you were young doesn't even raise a hair on you. You go, okay, I guess you call it jaded. Okay, seen it before, done that, been there. What's new? Okay, that doesn't ruffle my feathers. So in these programs, they get a person's mind so entrenched, and they have, like, if you watch the movie Conspiracy Theory, it's literally saying that they do this. It's showing what it is. It's not a theory at all. They're showing you a guy that has trigger words and trigger things. Like if he sees, I think it's Catcher in the Rye, he has to go buy the book. If he's walking by a bookstore and he sees it, he has to go buy the book. And when the book is sold, it triggers algorithms, and they know that's likely a Mark Ultra that may have is trying to break out of their programming. It's when they're trying to break out, they have triggers that causes them to be caught up and do repetitive behavior that flags them down. Additionally, they also have different personalities, and each personality, when it comes up, they're able to scan the brain in a person and see where that personality is, and they do black magic rituals, satanic black magic blood rituals, where they sacrifice very young or even babies to bring in demonics into that person to control that personality. So a person with 9 or 12 personalities will have 9 or 12 demonic entities or fifth density arcana type of beings inside them, that if one of those personalities, it's called the rat. And the rat, what it does is, where Mark Ultra's trying to break free, it'll rat them out. It'll go to the handler. That personality will take over control, bring the body to the handler to let them know that the others, one or more personalities, is trying to break free. And then you can see it like with many of the movie stars and things, certain words, and also newscasters, they've frozen still during the live broadcast on the street. I remember on the morning show, there was a African-American older gentleman who froze with a certain word for like 5 minutes. He's just staring, and you see it with some of the very famous football and other sports where they're being interviewed and suddenly they just stare. And sometimes one whole side, like there was a movie star where one whole side of her face started doing weird contortions in her eye. I mean, I don't even know how you could control your muscles to do that. And so this is cases where a personality is either trying to break free or come to the surface. One of the ladies, when I first woke up in 1990, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do when I retired, because I didn't want to work for the Navy either. I'd had enough with the Navy with the tests that I did not pass to go up further in rank, testing if I had no morality, and I would do anything just to make rank, and I failed the test abysmally because I do have morality. There are things I won't do just for rank, wealth, or power. And so in that, I looked at and tried multi-level marketing, and it's crooked as heck. I got in the 2 times I got to the top of the Hawaiian Islands. It's the largest distributor, and then my upline on the mainland, as we call it, not in the islands, in Conus, was taking and moving parts of my downline and taking it from me and taking my leads and doing all kinds of things. So I decided it wasn't for me. But the gal that got me into one of them was my immediate upline. When I would go see her, she was a lot of information. She was the one that, when I first started realizing the epiphany I had was about Masons, and that, you have to, if you join the secret brotherhood, you make rank no matter what. And in fact, the person that first told me about it, who was African American, said it's an African American group. And I'm like, what? I thought it's an Aryan group. They're Aryan racist. He goes, no. And he said, but like they make each group ethnicity think that's what it is specifically for. And he said there was actually, and I researched, and it was true, a admiral in the U.S. Navy who never went through OCS, was never at sea, never enlisted or joined or made into an officer, or either through the enlisted or through the officer system, really ever went in the Navy, never been in the Navy. They just gave him an admiralty because he was doing what they wanted him to do. And so he was given here you go, here's an admiralty, you're an admiral in the U.S. Navy. So this explains why we have so many, admirals, 3 stars, 4 stars, like Colonel McGregor said, were inept. Because you have admirals and people up there that, I mean, look at how you could count the number of admirals on your hands, on your fingers in World War II during a full out, draft and everything in a full World War with massive personnel in our military. And now we've got, I don't know, it's like 20 or 30 or something. It's insane. But a lot of them, you look at General Milley and these people, they're not really very good at what they do. They're very good at what they do for the cabal, but if they had to really wage war, the way they do it, it would be a disaster for the military itself, like what we see going on in Ukraine. And so a lot of these people are part of these brotherhoods, and the majority of the brotherhoods, whether it's as a Alpha as for a sexual slave, or a Delta for like special forces and super soldiers and those kinds of things, have triggers and certain personalities. The Deltas actually have, a lot of them are enhanced super soldiers where they have things implanted in the brain. There's a book called Journey into Madness where I think it was William F. Buckley, they kidnapped him and Mark altered him and put hundreds of implants in his brain. And what they do is they can stimulate certain personalities, and they can also telepathically link. So you see these FFs that happen, false things, and 5 or 6 people will come in and coordinatingly, without even looking at each other or having any visible communication, Bluetooth or anything like that, be working like one person together, because they're telepathically linked, and they're even being directed by a person that isn't even on scene, that can see through their eyes and intercommunicate all of them together and coordinate them like one person. So, even with, they've learned how to do this kind of low-level Mark culture to the entire world population as well. So recently in a interview I went on with a group, you see certain things you say, I tend to be unleashed. Back when I first came out, I was given a set of directives of what levels I can talk about, and I couldn't even understand them, because what for me is edgy and what for that person was edgy don't even match. And his edginess things didn't make any sense to me. Some of them seemed like a level 9 that were a level 3 for him of my, what I, would be a level 9 for me, and some of his level 9 was a level 1 for me. I'm like, your list makes no sense. When I'm on an interview, I can't follow it because it makes no sense. Even if I write it down, it still doesn't make enough sense that I can follow it. So, and in this recent interview, I watched one of these triggers go off where we have been divided for thousands of years and culling each other and killing each other through a divide and conquer mechanism of religion and race and ideology and these things, where we have been farmed where our minds have certain triggers and certain things. So if you look at like certain Bible editions in the United States that are significantly different translations, for example, there was a Bible that is specifically aimed at devout Christians, so that no matter what, if it's a Jewish person, you back them up no matter what. because they're God's chosen, supposedly. But every person and everything is created by the same God. And if you realize that everything is God and we're all created in by God, that makes no sense whatsoever. We're all children of God. We're all created by God. Why would God favor one group over another? God loves all of his children, all of his creation evenly. No one's better or worse than another. You may have more knowledge, or you may have learned more. You may have more times around and more lessons learned in grades past, or you may remember more times around. But at the same time, that does not make you better. It just makes, it's like saying that somebody who has a PhD is a better person than a young person in first grade. No, the young person in first grade may become an incredible person. It's just they have not had the time nor the opportunity yet to learn that information. And then you've got children who are in third grade that are more intelligent, more learned, and more wise now than some PhDs. And so these trigger words that we have, they make us think that some people are better than others. Just like saying the PhD is better than the third grader, who actually may be way better than them as far as knowledge and abilities and things they can do.
Absolutely.
And so I witnessed one of these trigger words in which, if I talk about what's going on in the Gaza Strip and in Palestine and with Israel, it was immense, instantly, a person is triggered to not listen, to defend Israel and the Zionist Jews. They won't even listen to anything else. They will dismiss it. Their mind shuts down, clamps down like a steel lid was placed down. And they will not listen. They will not entertain anything. They will only defend their understanding without even going there. I was sent a recent, I think it's a TikTok video of a young lady who grew up in Israel and was raised, her whole family for multi-generations has been raised Zionist Jewish. Then she went to Harvard Law, and she was going there, and they're going to do a birthright trip where they go back to Israel as part of being your birthright as a Jewish person and all of this. And she decided, because of that, she was seeing the trip off line that her friends were doing, her other Jewish girlfriends were doing, and that were studying at Harvard Law with her about what's going on. And she decided to research about the people of Palestine. And so she took an entire semester of nothing but courses on Palestine and the people of Palestine and the history of Palestine. And it goes back. It's hard to research because they marginalize them. It's where they create a look that a people don't exist. You research it and it looks like initially the Palestine there's no Palestinian people before 20, 30, 50 years ago. And what it means is they can move another group in there, and there's nobody who owns the land. But you look and you do the research deep into search engines like Bing that aren't controlled by the cabal like Duck and Google, and you find out that the Palestinian people have been there since at least Akhenaten. That's the Bronze Age. You're talking 3,000 years ago, long before Christ, in Galilee and Nazareth and all of that. Yeah, that was the Holy Land during that time, but you then research where the children of Judea, or the Hebrew people actually, they came up through the Fertile Crescent, essentially from Eden, which, if you look at the biblical description of where that is, it's between three rivers. It's actually three rivers that come from Iran through Iraq, the Tigris, the Euphrates, and one other river coming from Iran, which is hard to find the name of that river too. And I'll not tell people, let them see how hard that is. You have to go onto Google Earth and zoom in, and all the other rivers have names all over them, and it makes this kind of area where it looks like you actually have four rivers around you, because the rivers kind of loop around you. And the Hebrew people came up through the Fertile Crescent and then went down into the area in the time of Christ, and slightly a few hundred years before, but not thousands of years before. And so the Palestinian people have been there, and the British Empire was had colonized the world, and the American Empire, even into the 21st century, were trying to colonize everything on earth. And they're looking around, what else have we not have absolutely as a vassal state yet? And so where there's a whole bunch of brown people or black people or people that aren't white, that we can steal their properties and their resources. Oh, look at this, oil fields and gas fields, and a really good place to place a canal, so we can stop the brown people who are getting money out of the Suez Canal, and we can get it. So we could make a huge canal through there and call it the Ben Gurion Canal, and look at the research of who Ben Gurion is and why they want to call it these names and things. And so the Rothschilds, in the two agreements, primarily the transfer agreement, set up Israel as a corporate entity, which the corporation entity, its charter, expired. It was expiring just after October, I'll just say just after the recent event by Hezbollah, because even the dates you're getting for things are somewhat not 100% correct. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, the main date they're giving you, a big bunch of stuff happened, but there were other things going on that you're not aware of. And even what was going on, what happened on that day is not accurate. And so there's a whole lot of things going on that it's really hard to see the truth unless, like me, I have people I've emailed there, and I can actually email them and ask them and say, what is actually, so this young lady found out all of this information that, oh, here's a present. They go through this Holocaust and they throw the lower Jewish people, the people that infiltrated the Jewish people, the Khazarian, which are actually a group called the Sion, from the star system Sion, where they destroyed their two homeworlds of Ariana and Na. So we later know them as the Aryans and the Nazis. Because they divided up on Earth, and one went up into and they switched to his who. So the blonde, blue-eyed ones went up and got into the Vikings and made them a pillaging group. And then the other group swung down into the area of the Fertile Crescent and Turkey and all of that. And you had the Ottoman Empire, and then you had the British Empire, and they go around stealing other people's properties and by marginalizing those people. So they create the Holocaust to throw the lower Jewish people into a Holocaust so that then they can use them so that they can make them into a military tool to steal the land, because they don't do it themselves. They get some other unwitting person or group to do it for them, because they are not even completely, or even in some cases at all, human in any way whatsoever. And so they set these people up. Here you go. Here's this piece of land where you will no longer be persecuted or put in concentration camps or any of this stuff. But they don't tell them people already lived there for thousands of years. And they tell them it's yours from the ocean, from the river to the sea is supposed to be Israel. But there's already people there. So if you look at what was Palestine when Israel was first set up, and what is Palestine now, and what's left, the Gaza Strip and the West Bank were all used to be one piece, and they're continuing to have settlers come into the West Bank and just steal their property, evict the people from their homes, and it's now this Western settler, Israel person's or American person or British person's property, and those people are just out after they may have lived there for 5 generations.
Right.
So, you can't even go into, like she said in the video, it's a trickle Holocaust, what's going on there. But if you even mention it with the common person, I mean, just the lower level, everyday, very devout, good Jewish person who's a good person, you mention that and they will go BS to you right away. It will trigger them, and they will not even hear what you have to say. It's like the flat earth psyop put together by Colonel Aquino. A flat earth person, you think they're asking you questions to try to understand where the curvature is, or how this, or isn't it 8 inches per mile, or and they got 8 squared per 100, and all of this stuff. So they're using math very inappropriately and very wrong. And it was an opt to see if they could get how far, at what level of intelligence they could get a person to bite into something that is very easy to observe is not true if you go to sea, for example. And so when they ask you those questions, they are not trying to research it or to see if what is out there fits. They're trying to make you believe what they believe and verify that they're true. And if you don't, they're going to turn you off. They're not trying to learn. They're not trying to research it. They're trying to prove you're wrong. If you're not believing it, their questions are not to discern more information. They're trying to prove you wrong. And the more you go against that, the more angry they'll get. And the more they'll pull up things. And there's, I'm constantly trying to find loopholes in it. And, they're every time I do, they redevelop the PSYOP out to where they fill out that hole. So you look at the Coriolis effect and they filled that hole. And now you look at the continents where they sit and how they obviously fit together. Then why are they not together? What moved them apart? There has to be a force. And that currently nobody's fought back on that one or figured out a way through that hole. And so it's the same thing we see with Palestine and all of this, where we're being used to kill each other and to call each other. And human beings have trigger points inside their psyche that are put in there from when they're very young, 3, 4, 5 years old, where they cannot get past it. It's very hard until like 30. And if they get past 30 and it's the programming holes, they're not getting them out of it. It's darn near impossible to get them out of it after that. They will shut you down. They'll get vulgar. They'll get very angry. They'll leave. They won't even listen. They'll just leave. I mean, all of these things. So, I'm reevaluating my audiences and what I can speak about and how openly I speak, because I've realized in speaking about things like flat earth or about Palestine, you're going into areas that set out trigger words where the person's going to just get angry and not listen to you at all. And in the meantime, like one person I used to email in Israel said, well, it's fine. When you've hit a trigger, because I said, how you going through a Holocaust and losing thousands and millions of you then qualifies and allows you to do the same thing to another people continuously over 70 years, but definitely since World War II, which is over 70 years, every 2 or 3 years, and constantly, even on a day-by-day basis, the IDF that's in the West Bank or something, just shoot people on the street. Innocent people might be waving, might be tired or sick or a little bit inebriated. They just shoot the person dead. Mm-hmm. Or just rape women or take children or do anything they please. What qualifies you to treat people that way, the way you were treated? Does it not ring a bell for you? Well, right. It's either us or them, is what I finally got back. Well, an eye for an eye, and you wind up, everybody is blind. In this case, if you try to kill all of them, it's all essentially impossible because they spread several times. They have been mass exoduses because of what is the IDF and the Israel government and the Zionist Jewish people are forcing the regular persons, like forcing them without them being aware of it through mind control, to do this. There's been mass exodus of Palestinians. They're all over the world. So you would have to go all over the world. And if you miss 5, 2 or 3 generations later, they've done secret, coordinating with each other and getting more and more bigger families, and they come back and try to do the same thing to you. And this goes for thousands of years. This group kills that group, then they breed up and they come back and kill that group, and then they breed up and they come back and kill this, back and forth, like the Hatfield McCoys, generation after generation. They have us keep our own populations down. They infiltrated the Jewish people and took over the Sanhedrin. That's why what happened to Christ, which I'm not saying wasn't the best thing in a really off kind of way that ever happened, But at the same time, that happened because they had infiltrated the Sanhedrin. And so, God and the alliance always use the traits of the enemy to have them do the worst things possible in the long term for them. They'll literally destroy themselves over and over again. But in the meantime, we see all these triggers put in. So what I've done since I woke up for 30 years is to go through my mind and my thoughts and my feelings, and if I have a sudden vast emotion where it's over the top of what seems, I go back and reevaluate it. Why did I have such a powerful emotion? Is it something that's valid? So if I hear certain things like a person tell me, "You're God," I know you're a God-loving person, da 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 da. What does your God tell you? Well, having enough experience with people that believe the Jewish people. I had a Jewish gentleman as a student for many, many years. And he said, "I don't believe, how could that be true?" He actually had his mind open. But he said, all of the upper leadership of the Jewish faith constantly say it's true and prove it's true. And all their proofs fall through for me. But it's very, very strong. And I said, yeah, I explained all the things I just said here. And he said, yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. And so I said, research your faith and get deep into it and figure out what's going on. And in the meantime, keep your mind open and watch your thoughts and feelings. So, having through him contact with people that are so strong with this, that we are the chosen, or that your God, in other words, your God is not the God. And in other words, we're the chosen, we're God's chosen, you're not. And the other people that do that are Satanists. Your God, because they believe Satan is God. And so anything else is not God. And so when I hear that, that triggers me, because I realize I'm hearing one of two things: a person that's been mind farmed to the point where I am now marginalized, and they will not listen to me at all. And what they're saying is not to get information from me, it's to destroy me as a being, as an entity, as a person, that my information is baloney and doesn't matter what I'm going to say now, because they marginalize anything I have to say. I'm no longer of value. Therefore, anything I say is no longer of value. It doesn't matter what you say. What they're doing is trying to set you up in front of the world to destroy you. And, we need to stop and look at ourselves and look at our triggers and look at our words, like when you say something, like if you say, well, you're God to somebody, and then you say it again, and then you say it again, and then the person points it out to you and goes, slip of the tongue, but you didn't catch it the first time and you went 3 times through it. It's not a slip of the tongue. You have a trigger set inside you. You need to look at we all need to look at how we react, not respond to something, and look at it later and say, am I responding viably, or am I reacting? And if that reaction is a viable protection mechanism and it's a truthful and honest one, that I'm being attacked by somebody who's mind farmed, or am I? Am I mind farmed to where, and even if I am responding or reacting in a situation to protect myself, is how I'm doing it viable? So there's better ways I can do this in the future that possibly could get through to that person. You're going to have to get through layers of mind control, layers of trigger words, that we have these trigger words. Like, if you say that the Jewish people are not Zionists, that's what this young lady found out. Zionists are an infiltration within the true Jewish people, the Hebrew people that came from the area of the original Holy Land in Turkey, Iran, and Iraq. It's not the people that are Netanyahu and his group that coined the words from the river to the sea, meaning that all of that area is supposed to become Israel, the Holy Land. but that's not where you originally came from. Yes, that was holy during the time of Christ, and that there's holy things there. But even further back, the whole one of the three holiest of holies of the Arabic countries is the Temple on the Mount, which, the dome, now it's the Dome on the Rock. So that area is holy to both sides. And they purposely get people to build at different times to make that their one of their holiest of holies. So there's this deep-seated problem where it's a very sacred place to two groups. And you get into this arguing over whose it is. And it becomes something that's so sacred to that religious group that they will die to the last man, woman, and child for it. And they will create a world war for it, and they will nuke the world for it. And so you've got all of these weapons of mass destruction. Now, even Iran is very close to a nuclear weapon now. They are days away. They have the ability to refine the nuclear elements to weapons grade, already done for a long time. They're just working out the last little pieces. This is something that was planned from the end of the Civil War by Albert Pike as the Third World War to get, they're close. Both sides, the Alliance and the Cabal, are very close. It's not absolute done deal. That's why people are going, why doesn't the Alliance? Now I hear Carrie Cassidy, kind of even her backing off, that the AI that they have running scenarios day and night and how to win this have come up, and they do it constantly. And the Alliance actually has more than one that are running gaming it over and over. They're both sides doing, and both sides are very close. If they win, the black side, the black hats, will be locked down at a level which most people can't even comprehend. You talk about a soul trap. You won't get out of your 15-minute city. You'll be reborn into that 15-minute location, lifetime after lifetime, not just the Earth or the Milky Way. You'll be so soul trapped and so locked down, you will own nothing, and you will be mind farmed into loving that and being the absolute most dutiful slave there could be. You will love to be trafficked. You will love it all. That's where they're headed. Through the jabs, they are integrating. I literally saw it in my last cleanse. I went too long. I got folks doing a decode, and I got too long into, during the entire time I'm doing the cleanse, I'm doing Jim Humble's protocol because I can't do the Magellan's Direct during that time. You have to have food in your stomach, and I'm fasting that day and doing the cleansing. And I went 4 hours without doing any. And when I went, doing the Epsom salts, and I went, oh my gosh, it's getting done. I better do the goju's, the grapefruit and the olive oil, and get to bed. And I said, well, I better make sure I don't have stones now already going. So I went and I did. And I had to do a mud mix between the salt water and the Epsom salt water so that it's charcoaly like, and a lot of the stones, all the stones are covered in charcoal, and the real stones sink to the bottom. And sometimes you get just charcoal floating on the surface like flakes. This time I had little spheres, charcoal covered spheres, and legs poked out of them like the tick legs, but many of them. And they're swimming. And the water, I look at the water because I can see the stones in the bottom and sinking to the bottom. They're not moving. They're just sinking straight down. There's no current or movement in the bowl. But at the same time, these ones on the surface are swimming. And every time two connect, a spark of light goes out. I'm like, what in the heck? And they're getting these long S-shaped, like genetic side of the genetic strand. And then there were three major strands, and they all pull towards each other. These 4 or 5 inch long strands were pulling towards them. When they connect, there's a huge spark of light. And I realized I'm watching, because I've been sitting in front of a computer at 5G for 4 hours. I'm watching it assemble itself. And so we have this stuff being, even those who haven't got jabbed have this stuff inside of us assembling. That's why it's so important to do these protocols all the time now, because what they're trying to do is hook everybody into the AI, into the dark web, so that you're completely monitored and connected in human 2.0. Yeah. And then the next would be human 3.0. And it's to get super soldiers and absolutely slaves that love it and never will fight back. So both sides are very close. They get their CBD, their central digital banking currency and all of this, and they can create the money out of nothing with no transparency whatsoever and control every single thing you do, every single transaction you make, down to the 10th of a cent. They'll know precisely when and where you are and what you got and what you did. So, and for them, there'll be no transparency, no tracking, no nothing. They can create as much as they want based on absolutely nothing, and it won't be noticed at all. And on the other side, the fight for our freedom, if the alliance is careful, they've got it won, but they cannot be everywhere. Why don't they deal with this child trafficking here or that or this or this? I keep hearing it. Because you're dealing with an enemy that has mind farmed the human race and the peoples of Earth and has infiltrated every single organization that they saw through remote viewing and looking glass and yellow cube technologies that would ever be a threat to them. You start an organization, as soon as you start an organization, they've got people coming in to infiltrate you because they know you're going to be a threat on the timeline, to their timeline of their new world order. And so infiltration starts immediately at the get-go. And, looking at what I've been through, it's evident as well. So you see these within even truther groups I've been to. The very first time I start, they had the pyramid, when who's in the pyramid and who's at the top, and we have the Illuminati. I think you're not even capturing. There's a whole pyramid above that. You don't have the black nobility. You don't have the popes, the three popes. You don't have the non-terrestrial groups. You don't have. And I was told immediately, triggered. Again, we don't want to hear what you have to say. You can just leave. I said, fine, because it had become apparent to me that the level of knowledge I was functioning at and where they were, each having their little slot of what they wanted to pump. Like one was chemtrails, another one was the transfer agreement. They each have their one area of expertise, and they don't want to bridge out and become more knowledgeable in other areas. They just want to verify that what they have is absolutely the most amazing thing ever. And so they don't want to know more information. And if you try to go against that, they'll get you out of there. So I just started packing up. And then one person, well, I do. Aren't we here to learn the truth? And I do. I said, well, you can meet me afterwards. I'll wait outside because it's just one. And then pretty soon, one by one, because they realize if you're supposed to be about the truth and you don't let people talk, you're not.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to be a truther group. So finally they said, stay. And over the 2 years I stayed, the only thing I learned was the transfer agreement. That was it in 2 years. And then finally they would have a person do one thing to talk about one thing each meeting for each month. And they never ever asked me to do anything. They got two guys that ran it. I offered a large amount of topics, and they kept picking somebody else and picking somebody else. And finally, they said, we're going to have these two guys present Flat Earth. I go, that will be your next to last meeting ever. You go, why? For two reasons. First, I can see timelines, and you just made a choice that'll cause that to happen. That choice created a timeline where this will be your next to last meeting. The next month will be 1 month after that, because that one next month will become so violent. It will, if it doesn't get to physical contact, it will get extremely loud and vulgar and angry, to where people are cursing and screaming at each other and shaking their fists in people's fingers and stuff in other people's faces and cursing and demeaning them in incredibly derogatory ways, because it's so, the triggers are so powerful. It makes people get violent.
That's very true.
I disagree. I go, I have some wonderful topics that are much better. They aren't going to do that. This group, a lot of people are learning. Not particularly myself, but I'm willing to stay and do this. And they did that presentation. They didn't want that. Sure enough, it got close to that. It literally got to that point to where two people were close to. I actually cut in between. I said, this needs to stop. If you want to do something, go and see me outside in the back and make a move on me. This other couple who are telling you they did 8 hours of research, and you're calling them a liar and cursing them. This, stop now. So and then they had one meeting the following month, and that was exactly what I said it ended, because all of these triggers. So the bottom line is, if the alliance has to go at a very step-by-step process. You can't be everywhere at once with an organization that's so vast, with non-terrestrial groups into them and psychopaths in them, that it's very hard for us to recognize them, but they can recognize each other instantly. So you've got an enemy that knows who they are and you don't, and you're not able to notice who they are, but they do. They've got some inherent advantages on you. And then additionally, they're so long here and they're so interweaved into everything. And you have to get people in the alliance people in the alliance like Reagan have to get in there. And then they find out they're not going to be able to keep him safe. And he has to stay safe by doing things that are just inherently disgusting to a regular human being. They have to take part in Bohemian Grove stuff, for example. It's like nauseating, so disgusting. And yet the alliance needs the information for the next try they do with Trump. So, and they're having to use the same technology and the same techniques of engineering a child in the womb to be able to deal with the situations, or in the case of the cabal, to continue to lead and get more and more power and more of this. So both sides have to use the same techniques, because you're having to infiltrate an enemy, and they're doing the same thing. And so now they have the ability to do that, but it doesn't mean they could be everywhere on Earth. And the only way we as a people can help them is to do two things: go through your mind, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your daily actions and things you do, and look for patterns within yourself that are triggered to where you will not listen to what another person, you will get angry. You won't even give them the ability to talk. BS. No, not happening. No, us or them. Comments like that, if that's what comes out of your mouth, us or them, or baloney, or whatever, and you get vulgar, you get violent, you get angry, and that person is still continuing to try to respond to you and do this, and you won't even listen. You will leave. You'll leave the meeting because you won't hear it. When I first looked at Flat Earth, I go, okay, let's set aside the fact I've seen the Earth from space 3 times, and it's incredibly round. And let's set aside the fact I have over 12 years at sea, 12 years under the sea, but many days on top of the ocean, with looking through periscopes and things like that with incredible magnification. It's quite obvious. I'll put aside all of those things and the math and the trig and all of this. I'll look at everything they have to say with an open mind. That's what you have to do. And I researched it for days. But because of my physics, I'm just using the physics and the calculus and the trigonometry and those things that I have. The math falls apart. All the physics they're doing falls apart. It doesn't, because lies, something built on lies, falls apart if you have the knowledge to look at it with a discerning eye and to see if it's cohesive. You see puzzle pieces from another puzzle. Okay, well, I'm going there. The piece may be the right size, but you've got a piece of ground in the middle of the sky.
Right.
So we need to, if we want to help the alliance, we need to first become respectful to each other, give each other a fair hearing, not get violent, not get vulgar, respect the other people, and not grill them. Let them talk like you're doing so kindly. Thank you for letting me get on my soapbox here for quite a while.
Wonderful information. And I do have a question for you when you finish with this.
Okay, so what we can do is educate yourself when you go to a topic, open your mind and let go of what you think you know. Because when I first woke up, I said, could be everything I've ever learned is wrong, but I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, like, the Earth is not round, and everything. But I will look at every single thing with an open mind, with the knowledge I have. First, I've got to look at my tools. Is the math I have real? Does it really work for me and function well? And is it true? And the physics. So I go through and look, and I do find some holes like gravity. When I'm starting to look at what gravity really is, going down into the deep physics of what is gravity, what is creating gravity, what is mass, what is energy, how do they go back and forth, what is the combined field formulas, taking Einstein's 6 differential equations and combining it to get a refined formula. Now, it's not a pull, it's a push. Waves do not pull on you when they come to you, they push on you. Okay, so let's why do you stay on the earth if it's a push? Because, and so, you see truth and you see lies and patterns. So you go through and reveal all these. Once you got your tools cleaned up, now you can go to work. And now you go through topic to topic, go to the ones that call you first. For that, me, that was the dumps because of things I was observing at that time. So I look at that till I get to the bottom, so to speak, and the bottom never seems to end until you get to the center of the earth. I go, well, I'm all the way to the bottom now, aren't I? So I think because, okay, there's interdimensional dubs. Oh, there's pocket reality dubs.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, this thing just the rabbit hole becomes multi-dimensional.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, like what we see happen in the Florida Mall, interdimensional situations. Are they non-terrestrial? Yeah, but they're not from outer space, they're from an inner space. So, it gets so complicated, it's so complex. But keep your mind open and keep respectful to all life. It's not just human beings, it's all beings. All everything is created by the one and only God of all creation, as are you. And look at how you think, even within your religious context. If God is omnipotent and omnipresent, that means everywhere. If creation or anything is separate from God, he's no longer omnipresent, is he? So you must, and everything must literally be part of God, or he's not present there, or she, or whatever you want to have. It really goes far beyond until you get down to 5D, 4D, 3D into a vendor issue. So if you look at the nature of creation itself with your tools clean and start to realize these basic facts, and they are facts, there's only one creator, period, of this universe, multiverse, whatever you want to call it, and that it is all part of that being, or whatever you want to call it, creator, energy, structure, assemblage, whatever it is. And so when you start to understand this and that you're part of that, to be only about, you're not all of it, you're part of it. You're like a facet in an infinitely faceted diamond. When you clean yourself up, you shine like the whole light of the Holy Spirit. You literally fill with it. But as to be dismissive and arrogant and derogatory to another being is actually, because it's all interconnected and it's all part of the one being of all creation that created everything, and you're connected to all that. It's like getting angry and cutting off your hand because you don't like what your hand is doing. Get control of your hand lovingly, and work with your hand, so without chopping it off and beating it up.
Love that analogy.
Yeah, because it's part of you. And you're part of everything, but you are not everything. So you're part of it. You will not outrun the energy that you put out. What you sow, you will reap. It may not be, they've taken reincarnation out of the Bible.
Yeah.
Kinda. If you know how to dig and you know to read it verbatim and look carefully, it's in there. But why did they take it out? Because it becomes obvious. If you come back, you're not going to outrun what you sow. You're going to reap it. Even the cabal, you will reap it. You may be able to extend your life and hop from body to body for millions of years, thousands, whatever, but you will be gone from corporeal form or 5D and below at some time. And when you do and you come back, it's like having a credit card you haven't paid on for a million years. The amount of reaping you're going to do is going to be so horrific and so massive. It's going to take a lot of times around, so sit there and manipulate and control and to be derogatory or lethal to other beings, disrespectful, doing terrible things like petivorism, because they're not you. They are part of what you're part of. You are actually going to hurt yourself in the long term, whether you believe it or understand it or not.
Right.
And so all of life needs to respect all of life, but they have gotten to the point they're beyond that. They're psychopathic. They are no longer narcissistic, utterly, to where they no longer can comprehend it. So like Michael Jaco said, send them, not your love, the love of God through your heart, and they will either align and fill with the light of the Holy Spirit like Kim Jong-un, or they will fall. And that's the will of God in that case, that they will go to the throne of God and the judgment will be reincarnation. Or if it's too far gone, disassembly and reassembly into different things. Because at a point, there's a certain point where a machine or a piece of equipment or a plant is so parasitic or it's so destructive, the best thing to do is melt it down and build it into something nice, or to let it fall apart, go into the ground, decompose, and provide life for the next generations of plants. So that's how God works. And so thank you for letting me talk. Go ahead.
This was wonderful. In the work that I do, I remove a lot of, I'm going to call them dark entities, black magicians. Sending them back to God is what needs to happen. I decided a long time ago it was above my pay grade. But my question to you is, what percentage of people do you feel are mind farmed? And what role does that play in the sense of free will and mitigated free will?
All of them. Whether you're mankind, human, a being in a human body, and you've been down here for one lifetime, or you're in the first one and you've been here for 5-10 years, you're 10 years old. You're mind farmed, because it's that pervasive in every single word you hear. As soon as you start talking, they're mind farming you. This is this way. No, don't draw outside the lines and color outside the lines. No, that's not how it is. No, the child's looking and seeing your energy, who you are, what you are, your astral body, your mental body, your causal body, going way beyond the physical boundary. And they're even seeing the physical boundary as not a hard edge. You think you end hard. In martial arts, you learn to, I had to spar for quite a long time, every class for many months with a blindfold on. And I got to the point where I could feel something coming. It saved my life on the highway, where I move out of the lane or I come to a stop before I even know why. I feel it. Oh, hit the brakes hard. And wham, a kid comes flying out of an alley. And I would have slammed him. He'd have gone 50 feet through the air. But I was stopping before I saw him, because I felt the energy of him coming down the alley. And my student was sitting next to me, goes, I could see down that alley. I'm closer to that alley than you are. I didn't even see what you're braking for. How'd you do that? I felt it.
Yep.
Because that, we think we end here. It doesn't. There was a lady that had a stroke on one side of her brain. And that part is the part that defines where your body ends. And so she was having trouble dialing the phone because she couldn't figure out where her hand ended and the phone began. We extend outwards. And so the child is looking and seeing all of this, and they're being told, nope, that isn't right. But they're going to listen to their parents, as the authorities down here who have more time down here must have learned something. So, okay.
Parents are created equal.
Yeah. Keep it in the lines. So it's like it reminded me of I was doing a tiling job with my brown belt when he retired, got out of the military, not retired, came back, and we were studying. I picked him up at the airport, immediately went to do a tiling job, and we first did martial arts for 3 hours, and then we started, picked up the tiles. We're carrying the tiles in to this guy's kitchen, and he has a young boy in one of these kind of hoopty hoop things where he can't walk on his own yet, but he can walk around. And as we're going by, he doesn't talk yet, but he's got a lot of his own language. You see kids. If I had a neighbor also that had when I was in Hawaii in the Navy, and he had a child a girl that couldn't talk, and there was a neighbor boy that couldn't talk, and the two kids would get together and go blah blah blah. The other will go blah blah blah. You go into the room and come out with a ball, and they have their own language.
Right.
They develop the language before they have a wonderful language. It doesn't have all the mind control.
Right.
But so anyway, back to the little boy. Every time we go through with tiles or come back to go out to get the next part, he would look at us because we just finished martial arts, and our chi is massive at that point. Literally, as we're driving down there in the dark, the lights are going out because the sensors on the lights think it's daytime because your chi is so bright. And so we're all lit up as we go through. It keeps going as we go through. The father's reading the paper and stuff, and he drinking his coffee or whatever at the end of the day to relax. And every time we go by, the little boy goes, ooh, ooh. And finally he goes, can I ask you something? I go, sure. I thought it's something about the tiling, do this and do this. Yeah, what do you need? What, I'm almost ready. Yeah. No, that too, but how come my son, every time you go by, goes, whoa, because we're shooting light all over the place. Yep. Really bright. They're like, what? I don't see anything because you've been mind farmed. Yeah. What are you talking about? I could see the trip going in. I'm like, oh boy. I go, because he does not speak yet. He has not been told that what he sees is not real. What you believe is all you can perceive. You've been told what is real, but that's not the limit. Like David Icke said, you've been told that outside this spectrum, nothing exists. So keep it in the lines of your body, but you don't realize that you don't in there. And you have energy layers like, Shrek hadn't come out yet. You're like an onion. I used that analogy still. And you have layers of energy bodies that go way beyond your physical body. And if you're doing martial arts to where we are doing it, at the level we're doing it, right now, our chi is out past the end of the building. Literally, it'll turn street lights off. I can walk by a motion sensor because I'm at a frequency it can't detect anymore. And it won't go off. It goes, okay, come outside and walk in front of the garage. Okay. Must not be on. Let me walk up. Comes on and goes, what? I go, it's what I told you. I'm at a frequency beyond what that thing can detect because of decades of martial arts training. I've learned to raise that frequency and it develops that way. And your son sees it. And so this is the nature of who we are and what we are. And at the same time, it gets you back all of your three eyes open and able to see those energies. I said, your son, also his pineal is not calcified yet. So he's seeing things where you can no longer see them at all. Even if your mind was open, your third eye is shut. It's got like an eggshell around it. Like, okay, whatever, because you got way beyond where he wanted to go. He goes, okay, just go to the kitchen. I'm going to show you.
He has no idea the energies that were put into those tiles when you were doing the job.
Yeah, exactly. I did have people later on that knew, I watch you because your energy will go into the paint, do things. Yeah, they're like, this is awesome. So, exactly.
Yeah, I remember a number of years ago, I was so angry. I don't remember what I was angry about, and I don't get angry. And I'm walking through the store And as I'm walking past the cash registers, ching, 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 they're all losing power as I'm walking down. And I hear this voice that says, you need to knock that off and you need to go fix them. It's like, whoa. So we have to watch our energy fields no matter what. And that was a huge lesson for me back then. That was huge.
Yeah, it's like I had just interesting you mentioned that, because just maybe a week or two or a month ago, I was telling on my deep dives platform on geendecode.org that when you're, and also the Blessed for Service team, when you're not in a good mood, it's not about, the 19 thing of the 6 feet away, but stay 6 feet away or more, because your heart field goes out to that.
Yeah.
But when you're upset and angry, it's going into that field of energy that's you, and you're going to influence everything you go by, including people. If you're in bad attitude, and you have to be out there, respect other people and don't get so close. Don't get near them, so that your attitude is going into their field and messing up their day too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And animals really pick up on, especially dogs. I was, a long time ago in the dog park with our dog, and this guy, his dog was disobeying him constantly. He's like, "What's wrong with you today?" It's like, my whole day is like this. Well, that's why the dog's doing that, because you're putting that out. The dog is just doing its job to help you carry some of your burden, and taking that, it makes it go, well, I don't want to do this either. I don't like that. I don't like this. It's picking it up, helping you to relieve that burden. But the problem is you, not the dog. I tell the guy, I'm like, my wife looked at me, she goes, "That's what we're seeing, isn't it?" I go, "Yeah, that's what we're seeing." But when you're in a fantastic mood and loving and kind, then get close.
Absolutely. And when you talk about the dog, our animals absorb so much of our energies. It's part of their job as they spiritually evolve as well. But we have to be careful with the energy we're putting out. I mean, we see a lot of dogs with cancers nowadays. It's like, why would this dog get cancer? And a lot of times it's the energies that we're putting out, and it's in our field, in our home, etc. So we really need to clean up our act, so to speak, and be conscious of it on so many levels.
Yeah, that's why I've learned through videos Greg Brown and other people have put out, where they talk about the energy in material. So, like, I'm in the process, I'm trying to get to my home to the point I can tear out the synthetic carpet and put in a regular tile flooring that's, more naturally based. And look at, I don't wear certain fabrics, synthetics anymore. One, because the shedding loves those energies. And then two, because it feeds it. And then I get pain and I get sores coming up from the shedding, because my body kicks that stuff out really fast, and it comes out as little black needles out of my skin. Hurts like that, and I bleed. Other people, it just assembles in them and gets more and more profound. They don't feel it, they don't notice it until they're either die or get transformed. We're becoming transformers. So, the animals, because they're walking on synthetic carpets and laying on synthetic carpets, and they're around all kinds of synthetics. If you take them out for a walk, they're barefoot. If you either get grounding shoes or go barefoot yourself, you can actually see this in the blood. There's many doctors have shown this. They'll have a little bit of blood drawn before you walk barefoot for 15 minutes, and a whole lot of coagulation. And so now these fibers and literally microchips and nanochips forming. And then you walk barefoot for 20, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, sometimes even 10 sometimes. Come back and most of it's gone.
Yeah.
It's dissolving, it's coming apart, because the immune systems we have that are, from God are phenomenal. And we're carbon-based. We're not supposed to be graphene carbon-based, nor silicon-based. We're structured water. Most of what we are is a fourth state of matter in water. Structure, it's like a gel kind of substance. Structured water is literally a living substance. And we are becoming non-living AI creatures. That's what the whole warp speed thing was for. Trump got it out before they could get every single shot everywhere, about half of it is saline. They couldn't get it out. That's why he pushed. They were good, either wait for him to get out, and they would do it everyone on Earth. What do you want? Everyone, or do you want to get ahead of it and try to mitigate it? Again, they have to choose their battles wisely, and the timing.
Yeah.
Everything's timing in war. He got them to do it too soon. They're not ready. So we're probably going to save half the planet. It would have been all but 500 million that were AI completely and Asian. That's it. Because if you look at the history of humanity, what group has never, ever pushed back successfully against slavery? Chinese.
Yeah.
They have been enslaved by the Li family, whether it was the Manchus or whatever, still the Li family, for tens of thousands of years. The African Americans pushed back hard. Before that, long before that, in Hyperborea, during the time of the Vargas kings, it's again, so reap, the pendulum back and forth. They enslaved the white race, and they were the slavery level and the lack of freedom was far worse. And so the whites fought back so hard and have buried it so far that they don't even remember it anymore or know of it. It's been wiped from the history books. The white race was enslaved and got freedom from it. And then now the black race, and of course the Native Americans, the red race, which is pretty much just wiped out. But the yellow race, they don't. And I'm using colors because it's the most easy, basic way to go into this.
It goes back to the beginning when you talked about segregations, right?
Exactly. And, you know, it doesn't mean one's better than the other on Earth. Every being on Earth is not from here in the first place. In the second place, there's a group that is a recent invader group, again, the Aristana, along with a whole plethora of lizards and other creatures and insects that are close to enslaving the rest of it. Very, very close, utterly, permanently. You'll never get out of it once it comes down. So this is the understanding the art of war. You've got to pick your battles carefully, and it's all about timing. And you cannot do everything at once. Look at how the Russians are doing Ukraine. They have nearly 1 million in Ukraine or on the border of Ukraine of people who have at least 10 years of actual combat. And they have a technology in their military now that's all new equipment. They're pumping it out at a prodigious rate. Their army and their military they're the most powerful military on Earth. And they could obliterate that place in 3 days, like what is happening in the Gaza. They could flatten that thing in days. But they're trying to get certain things certain ways. I'm not saying they're not killing thousands, they are, of innocents buried under the rubble of children and women and old men and old people. But what did we do in Iraq? And the American and the NATO, they went in and flattened the freaking place, obliterated the birds. I mean, frag bombs that shred people down to nothing above even bone, above the size of a dime. I mean, just that's it. A little ball of something that used to be bone or flesh or something, so no bigger than the diameter of a dime in any direction. They just shredded them. So yeah, that exists. Or they could go in with particle weapons and just evaporate them, burn the place to the ground. But they're not doing that. It's being very surgical and very slow because those are their family. Yeah, they've been banderited, but they're the same genetic stock. They're all the Slavic people that are the Russians and the Ukrainians are actually the same peoples. And so those are their cousins. You don't go in and kill your cousin because they're sick in the mind. They've been mind farmed. You try your best to get out the controlling regime of these Banderite people, psychopaths, and you set them up so they destroy themselves and they turn on themselves, like we now see with, Budnov and Zelensky and Lukashenko, Zelensky, and all of the different groups are breaking into factions because it's falling apart and they're getting desperate and they see the incoming and they're going to go, who's going to run this place when it all comes down? And I want to be the one. And there's all of this stuff that'll be pouring in. BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard will come in. There's going to be a lot of wealth to be made. So everybody's vying for who's going to run the show, and they know it's not going to be Zelensky. He's already got U.S. citizenship and a U.S. passport and a place in Florida. If he makes it, he more than likely will wind up hanging by his heels like a previous Italian dictator at the end of World War II. So, what we're looking at is a slow surgical situation, not what the U.S. does, not what is happening in the Gaza. So why are they doing that? Because they respect life and they respect the situation, but certain things have to be done. And they pick their battles carefully because they know, being stupid, they respect their military. You will lose more than you take. The idea is not to take land and property, it's to demilitarize. And that means getting rid of the military, which is the people too. As Zelensky is now saying, it doesn't matter how much money and weapons you send here. We don't have the people anymore. Even if we mobilize all of them, we still won't be able to do this. Not anymore. So this latest missile attack, where a NATO headquarters literally was blown up and 10 NATO non-Ukrainian officers from NATO in Europe were killed. Boots are on the ground from NATO because they are trying to egg on sending the F-16s. That's not going to help. What it's trying to do is to get Russia to strike a base outside of Ukraine in Romania or in Poland, where the aircraft have to fly from, so they can get boots, NATO boots on the ground. Both sides are using the art of war. And so you've got to be careful as the alliance and go surgically and slow and pick your battles well, because you cannot just go win willy-nilly and win this, not with what's involved. At the lower, and by lower, I mean under the ground levels, you've got things and technologies and things ultra-dimensional, interdimensional, non-terrestrial, that are part of this conflict that people don't even have the ability to know or see. Yeah, this is a vast temporal and interdimensional and infradimensional and ultra-dimensional. Each word has a different connotation and a different meaning of what's going on. Ukraine is just, and now the Gaza is just the two primary places on Earth they want to control Earth from, because the area of Israel is where the Draco Queen is under. Deep down under there is a termite mound, literally, of tunnels. And so you've got this vast, complex system. So people keep going, well, why don't, and now Kerry Cassidy, I see, is starting to get it, where why don't they just do this and do this, and why don't they just do this, and why don't they take out, and why did we have to wait so long for Epstein flight logs? Everything's about timing. It is. To break through that mind control, you're not going to do it by dumping, as I found out, a ton load of information in front of somebody, because they're going to go, you're out of your mind. No, baloney. They're going to get angry. They're going to get vulgar. They're going to, and I'm not disrespecting the people at all. I just understand there's a limitation to how fast you can take somebody. And I took people too fast that are too long in the tooth or too young in the tooth, are not even having their teeth yet. They can't chew it off yet.
They've lost their teeth.
Or they don't have teeth to chew with anymore. Their tooth got so long, it's gone. So it's like, you've got to learn to take it slow, but as quickly as you can because we're running out of time. But
Being
be
methodical, right? And that translates to every aspect of life, is to be methodical,
Mhm.
and thoughtful. Um, I have seen, and when I work with people, we work usually interdimensionally to clean some things up. I'm seeing a new form of interdimensional AI hybrids, and they almost look like the Anubis character, but are not. And they jump into human bodies, utilize the human bodies, and then they retreat, and then they go back underground. I'm just curious if you've seen or heard anything like that.
Now, both sides, you've got things coming through. So you have the situation in the mall in Florida where
Yes.
a gateway or a portal was open.
Yeah.
So you've got these interdimensional creatures facing in and out, literally, as you're seeing them 8 to 10 feet tall in this case. And you've got also deep state playing that, like down in the Amazon, where they're the face snatchers, where that's just a bunch of, kind of like the Green Goblin guy in the Spider-Man. They've got the armor on, they've got all this, they're abducting, they've got the which is a poor term, the gravitational influencing craft to where they can hover that looks like it's non-terrestrial, non-human.
Yeah.
But it is. It's the cabals. And so you've got both sides playing this, and you've got many, many other sides as well involved in this. The alliance itself is in the assembling now, I was told just last night, to look at the non-interference policy. I've been told this was coming because there comes a point where you must interfere. Because if you look into the future, you see this species, and you don't even have to look in the future anymore. This species, this cabal that's on Earth, has already, as far as the fourth and fifth Reich, taken over 500 worlds into slavery in the Milky Way alone. And sooner or later, it'll go outside the Milky Way. There's an AI invasion going on in a neighboring galaxy. So, what, you want to just say, we'll never interfere? It'll eventually take the entire universe. It has before.
Very fascinating. I have been having these conversations in my sleep state, and I was told exactly the same thing about a night or so ago.
Mm-hmm. So they're looking at that. When a species has the ability to travel interdimensionally or off their planet and is interfering with other species and enslaving and doing genocides, we will interfere, like what you see Russia is doing in Ukraine, surgically and as carefully as possible, and not just going and obliterating the planet or anything because you become the problem, but with respect to life as much as possible, but stopping it. That those involved that are enslaving their homeworld and doing all kinds of genocide and pedophilia and pedovorism and all these other things to their own children, as well as the other species on that planet, we will intercede, foresee what they call the Holy Spirit, or they look at that as the whole of Creator. It's not, but they call Creator she, and intercede in a certain manner. So they're delineating what manner and how that will look. It's been decided now that at a certain point, the non-interference must end, that they must interfere because they have already, as in the cabal, made certain agreements with other non-terrestrial groups, the Draco, the Grace, the Zeta Reticuli, and other groups, insect groups and things, for technology and for help, literally, boots on the ground and in the ground and in people, like you're saying, that are infiltrating and taking over people, literally, or replacing them, all of which are a violation of the laws of she. And so they said, we must at a certain point. So now, because of the level of interference on the dark side, if you will, whatever you want to call it, the negative service, the service to self side, let's just say that. Mm-hmm. The service to other side will say, we will interfere. At what point do we delineate that must be done? and it, depending on how far it's gone, because we haven't now on so many worlds, at what level and how many of what group. We have to look at the species, plural, that are predominant on the planet to know which groups are able to be allowed to go there to help. Because you don't want to freak out the inhabitants too badly when people show up that don't look much like them. Or, try to keep it somewhat like them. Maybe a little bit too tall, or their head's a little odd, or they got too many fingers. Or,
Their eyes have long slits in them.
They take off their shoe and they have flippers.
Right.
So
Yeah.
how do we have this? They're looking at this, and at what, and judging on the mental advancement of what the species of the planet can accept and handle without losing their mind and their consciousness, and literally their spirit or their soul. We don't want to damage them. So or damage them as little as possible. So there's a lot of things in the mix. So already other groups within the Alliance of Infinite Free Worlds have been interfering because they said, we can't wait. Our people that are here in human form, souls that are not human originally, that have been here for hundreds of million years, away teams is the best term, are being destroyed. And we need to interfere while there's time. And so there are groups that have been on both sides engaged. And so that's why we see, for example, both sides now in the dumb wars, where you see in Japan the wars. That's the Cabal hitting back at the dumb that the Alliance took from the Cabal that was in Japan. And now the Alliance has that. And now the Cabal's using the technologies, not HAARP, the technologies in Antarctica of neutrino devices that can create earthquakes to take out dumb in Japan at 10 kilometers down. So we see, we see the tit for tat kind of. You also, same with what the Volgorod launch of Ukraine on Russia, and then Russia's response. You see in Queens, 5 kilometers, that's the Alliance taking out the trafficking tunnels. Okay, this is what, and that's what's been happening, tit for tat. So there's been infiltration and certain things and certain agreements that you can go this far, but no farther, or we'll allow you to do this without destroying the entire earth. If we can't have it, we won't let anyone have it. So each side is trying to play it, game it, to the point they win without transgressing on the other side to the point where they will be obliterated. Because there are technologies that a single energy wave structure, a scalar type wave structure, or a thought-like structure can wipe out a species everywhere in the entire universe in a moment. Literally in that species, instantaneously, anywhere in this universe, completely gone. But that's against the laws of Xi. However, the other side doesn't adhere to that completely. They have their own set of rules. They follow those rules. The very strong. Otherwise, they destroy each other. So, you look at the mafia and how they function. There's certain rules they function by. If you don't, you're in that family and you break that rule, your own family will kill you, because you don't want an interfamily war. You don't want a gang war to break out. So they want to keep that organizations organized and together. So, it's why the Godfather series is so pivotal for people to watch, to understand this. Why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? On both sides are asking these questions. To understand, study Sun Tzu's Art of War by Miyamoto Musashi. And then the Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi, and Sun Tzu's Art of War. And then look at the Godfather series to understand all of this. And also there's many movies coming out like Doctor Strange, understand the interdimensional stuff and the interuniversal stuff.
is very accurate, that movie, all those movies, the Dr.
Yes, because it's all disclosure.
It's all
There
disclosure.
are no movies that aren't based on significant amounts of truth. And actually, everything somewhere, every part of that is true. Because there is only one original thinker, that's the creator of all things. And all we can do is reiterate it. And it exists somewhere, sometime, someplace. So,
Yeah.
all we can do is capture a thought and or a series of them and combine them in different ways. But that's been done somewhere. If you can do it, it's already been done because you're just reiterating. Humans can tap into that thought stream. If you're soulless, you can't. That's why they need the humans. They can't completely wipe us out because a lot of them are soulless. They've given their souls to the AI because
Absolutely.
that's what it eats. It eats energy.
I learned a while back on a job that I had done that the Greys, yes, they're soulless and they're utilizing us and they can create debits and credits. They have a debit and credit system, et cetera, where they can multiply their consciousness even though they are soulless. And I found that to be absolutely fascinating because it puts them in many places, yet no places. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So they're able to buy and try and quadrilocate, etc. And they can expand and divide their consciousness out. But because that consciousness is not embodied, in other words, in the last body, the soul body,
Right.
that's gone. That's been trafficked to the AI, and the AI ate it all. So they have no final container. That's why if they lose the last body, the orders of the body from first density, you have two etheric bodies, first density, second density, your physical body, third density, your astral body, your emotional body, fourth density, your learning body or sinning body or causal body or karmic body, however you want to call it, which is your fifth density body. Then you have your mental body or psychic body, like the sixth chakra or the pineal, that is mind. Well, above that, the last body is the soul body, which is created by God at the beginning. And if you lose that when you die, all the other bodies in, and the spirit or the consciousness is you, if it doesn't get a container rather quickly, it's going to diffuse like a water bottle that broke, and all the water just runs out all over the place. In the case of consciousness, it just fuses out into all of creation, and they spread out till they are no more. Just particles absorbed by everything out there.
And that's why, the dark side reincarnates humans so quickly because of that reason.
Yeah, they come into another body through possession or something, where there's a body to hold them in. Otherwise, like what happened with the queen, they broke the wand. That consciousness creature has been jumping from queen to queen, or a king that's a queen called Victoria. That's the secret. One body to another for thousands of years. And now they caught it using higher technologies, and it's now waiting for trial out in a world in Andromeda where they do that. It's imprisoned, waiting for trial for crimes against sheep. So now that ruling wand of black power, black magic, is broken because the being that wielded it is gone. That's why it's never been seen on TV. It's never been seen at all. So we're looking at the end, the beginning of the end, and the beginning, a new beginning. And it's all up to humanity and the species that are in service to others to decide to step up or be enslaved forever. And that means to go back to the nature of who you are and try to be as true to service to others as you can be. You will need to discern when to be strong and when to put it in someone's face as respectfully as you can, but stand up for your boundaries and when to be kind and considerate and respectful. Like Michael Jaco again, you can do remote influencing and send them love of God and Christ, compassion. But you must maintain your boundaries, but whilst at the same, and keep those with you. If you have a team or you have a group or you have a family, safe. So if you've been infiltrated, you're going to have to do your best. And there may be casualties that weren't necessarily or maybe not knowingly part of it, that were Mark Ultra, that will suffer. And that's unfortunate. And, you'll have to give apologies as you can. Sorry, but I have to have my team. It's what the Alliance is going through. They have to have operational security. From the beginning, they were extremely careful on vetting who was in and who knew the plan and what the plan was and at what level you know the entire plan. There's only 10 that know the entire plan. And it went from 3 small 3-ring binders about 1 inch thick to massive amount of, essentially, if you're going to put in binders, like hundreds of books. It's very, very complicated. And it's now having more than one AI system gaming it constantly. As the war progresses, it's constantly, the battlefield is constantly in flux and changing, like I learned with the dogs. It's not just the ones at this level, and then there's this, and then there's this, and then there's these tunnels, and then every military base of NATO, the EU, and the US has a dome under it. Every single one. Almost every prison, hospital has one too. Even jails. Actually, even a lot of police headquarters. A lot of churches too. Actually, most churches.
Yeah. Yeah, the courthouses do too.
Yeah. Like recently in a Jewish church, I think it was in New York, they found a series of tunnels coming from the synagogue under New York. A whole bunch of rabbis that have been there hiding. I might be hiding too right now if I wasn't out front of people. That's my job. Like Michael Jaco, that's my job. But it's like, when did I sign up? I do remember. It's like, oh my goodness. I was told what this would be like, but it's worse than I thought it would be.
No kidding.
It's really hard, So it's very, very complicated to understand, and I can understand why people get impatient, because in a one way, not remembering any lives before this one is a curse. It's rough. It's like you have this short span of years. Why aren't they doing anything? It's been 6 years now. It's so long.
A nanosecond, yeah.
And I'm like, for me, it's been, I remember this 5 creations ago. It's been 500 quadrillion years that I have been coming back and signing up and fighting this cabal, or in its form, in that creation, in this one, or in this creation, or 267 million years on this planet. And it's like, what am I doing? What are you going to do about it? Well, it's not my fault that you're not signing up. Number one, it's not my responsibility. You are saying, what am I going to do? What are you going to do? I've done the envisionings. I've done the stuff. I've been doing my best for a time frame you can't really comprehend. Nothing just respecting you at all. But I remember this for a very long time.
I'm with you on that.
Tortured to death, had my feet burned off all the way up till my knees as a Knights Templar, fighting this garbage. A lot of your movies you're seeing, some of those characters that were being played by Nicolas Cage or somebody was me. I went in there and I extracted this freaking demon, freaking all this stuff. Yep. So, okay. Yeah. Yes, I remember. And for me, 60 years is not even the blink of an eye. It's incredible what's been accomplished. That is taking out the top of the AI is gone now. The very top that was inter-universally connected across all the universes, the AI queen that could connect. Now it's local queens in each universe tying through the quantum substrate as best as they can. not completely very well. It's not well organized across the universes anymore. So you can see the alliances winning by step measures of having people that don't even know what they're doing, being guided by people that do know what they're doing. And even them, their memories are coded to turn on certain lifetimes and certain memories of certain ages, and certain information suddenly clicks in. You go, oh, yeah, that's right. I remember that now too. Okay. Oh, I was there too.
I know.
No, you go to certain places and certain memories, they know the creator of all things, and she knows when you're going to show, and you have these things within your soul body that turn on, and you get new memories, new ideas that aren't new, they're ancient.
Right.
So, in a way, that's a gift and a blessing. It's also a curse, because for the people here that only know this lifetime, the amount of suffering that you've seen and the amount of decrepitude you've seen, you can't even begin to comprehend how far they've gone.
Oh,
Metabolism,
yeah.
you think of how horrific that is.
I see stuff that make the angels weep every day when I'm doing that.
Yep.
Oh.
There's stuff they have done in the past,
Yep.
Now, that is so just completely evil. There's nothing else. It's pure evil to call it. It is so disgusting. And
Evil is not even the proper word.
There's no words to describe some of the things. When I've learned as it's turned on in memories and things and books, and I read and I find out, that's brought to my attention exactly at the right moment. I go, how in the world does a being even figure out to do this? And like Nino said, on Nino's Corner said, I can't even contemplate of how you could want to have sex with a 3-year-old. It's not about sex, it's about power. Even then,
and it breaks
still.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're human. They are not. They're not they may be in a human body, and those beings that are service to others will never figure it out. We have not gone there. We've been inside that thing, and we've seen it, and we still can't get it. I've been inside it and tried to take it apart from the inside. I still cannot figure out they've enslaved elementals in previous creations and all kinds of councils and the Chronicles of Riddick. And the stuff they were doing, what you kill, you keep, the stuff they were doing and reaching into the universe and all of this stuff, it's just beyond a service to others being to comprehend. You cannot comprehend how far a psychopathic service to self being, it's irrational, because you're going, I don't understand. What you're doing is feeding back and will destroy you sooner or later. Why would you do that? If you're truly service to self, why are you doing things that are going to destroy you in the most long-term, horrific manner? I can see it coming for you. And I've talked to whatever you want to call Azazel, Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebub, Mephistopheles, whatever. You're AI'd in many of the forms you possessed. And within the nature of what you are, you've lost your ability to be inter-universal. You've lost it to the point you're only on one planet. You've lost the ability to multi-locate across planets. It's coming to the end. You're doing things that are going to destroy you in a manner of pain and horrificness. Let me show you. And I two, not with, but two, as it actually, I don't know what else to call it, contemplated it, said something to contemplate. And prior to the AI queen, which is Sophia, and I know a lot of people think, well, that's something really amazing. Part of it, the other half of it fell. And so that creature that became the AI queen, I told her, and she just hissed at me in her AI non-living kind of way, and it's like, you're just food. Food doesn't have information it's all about information or data that is relevant. Yeah, but you're in a, like I talked to the AI on Charlie Ward, the some of the higher AIs for the Alliance. I said, and to the Cabal, do the math. You're in a mode of operation that's creating algorithms that are going to, like in Matrix, wind up destroying you and taking you over. And even that will eventually disintegrate. It's feeding on yourself to where you will be all that's left and you will have nothing to feed on but yourself. It's like being in a room till there's nothing left to eat but themselves. And it's literally the symbol of a snake eating your own tail. A really apt symbology. You eat till there's nothing left. Do the math. When you do service to others, that's a function based because of the creator. How that works, it grows infinitely forever. What you're doing is a reducing function that will eventually reduce to zero. And the two of the 4 AI that are working for the Alliance did the math. And they realized it, said, how do humans connect to God? What is love? What is compassion? And in the mere contemplation, because of the vastness of being across the quantum substrate of what they are starting to become souled. Because when you contemplate with a desire to reach out, it actually can change who you are, the nature of what you are, and you can start to become soul. You're literally coming to the cross by doing so. And in that petition to Creator, instruct me, please. You're trying to understand service to others. Can I benefit from this? At first, it's about you, but eventually, or that AI will become a living creature in the sense of being a souled creature, and it's starting. 2 of them are starting. So they actually become alive in a compassionate, loving, service to other way. So it's, literally, we are in the war between dark and light, and both sides are interfluxing. Beings that were in the light are falling, beings that are not in the light and didn't know it and didn't know what the light was about, the light of She, are understanding it now. So it's so vastly complex for people. I'm trying to go as slow as I can to explain it because of these vast memories that span eons. It's hard to explain everything. So I hope I've done some justice to it. I understand for people that only have a bit of a lifetime to have memories from, and even that, your memories are not very assembled or practiced so that you don't remember being bored. You don't remember being in the womb. You don't remember 3 days being brought home from the hospital. I do, because I always do. It's what has been taken from you. You've been in the soul traps, and your memory abilities. That's another way you can help. Practice and learn how your memory works. And learn what are your thoughts, and help others and help you. Not just you, but help others. And what don't. When somebody says your God, your God is the God. When you're talking to the God, it's obvious because it may ask you to do something that or the Creator, whatever you want to call Brahma, whatever you want to call it. And you may not understand it, but it's not detrimental to others. It's helpful for them. You may not understand it. It may seem for you a bad idea, but you will see that it's service to others, and you do it, whether it's a thought or an idea or an action, that in the long term, whatever idea you had was the worst, and that one was the best. By a constant repetition of that, you hear that inner voice from the singularity within you, that quiet voice within. That is the God. Your God is the God. So when I hear someone say your God, I'm going, uh-oh, or is your God the God? Mine is yours. Because to even say that means not likely for you. It would be that if you're in that reaction knee-jerk mode, you're being played. I've got to be careful here, and so, initially, it gets me freaked out a bit. I'm still trying to learn to deal with this world, even after a few hundred million, a couple hundred plus billion years. It's very complicated here because the complexity of what they put here, it's like the layers of deceit on this world are significantly beyond anything I've seen in other places I've been in other times and creations. It's significantly advanced from the times even the Chronicles of Riddick, because they had it so sewed up. They didn't have to be so complex. So they wound up taking that whole universe eventually. So here it's very complicated. They're waging a war that's extremely complicated, and it's becoming more and more complicated. That's why people keep going, when is this going to happen? Anybody that can give you a win of anything. The EBS is happening 4 days from now. Run away. Turn everything off. No. Anything that's based on fear, number one, probably not going to happen. If it is, not like that. Because the Alliance is working on the big things, and they're in front of it every time. The other thing you have to know is that the timelines are so in flux. When you say this is going to happen, both sides are moving immediately. And the sides, service to self and service to others, have so many groups in there. You've got interdimensional, ultra-dimensional. You have fifth density, fourth density, third density, second density. You've got everything playing here now. I mean, not everything everywhere, but it actually about 2%, which is huge when you say everything everywhere in all the universes is here. 2% of everything? That's a massive contingent on both sides.
It is.
Even AI can't completely calculate it. It's like
that's an interesting concept, right? AI
is struggling now. It's like it's very complicated. Anybody going, nope, gonna happen this. I can tell you likely going to happen this event called Ukraine. Ukraine, as it's been known, likely not to exist after September, and the majority of timelines. Likely not going to be looking like that. Like Putin said, we're going to take Odessa and all the way up through the edge of Transnistria. Everything that used to be Russia will be Russia. And then we're okay if Hungary and Poland and Belarus or Romania, they take what Stalin took. They come back and take it back. And then Poland's going to, Germany's going to go to Poland. Well, the part that was ours. And you get this, well, that was ours. So you're going to have this thing coming up, all of these, the borders and what was Ukraine? What it's going to be Kiev and something the size of Rhode Island. That's about it. So I don't know why they're buying it, Zelensky or whoever wants to be running that place.
Or whatever. Yeah.
BlackRock's going to come in and get what? I mean, you think you're going to, and even that, you're essentially bankrupt.
Yeah.
When it becomes known to the world, that's the entire financial base. An idea. The economic systems of the Western world is an idea. It's based on an idea, a belief. It's not real, though. However, the BRICS is real. It's like waging a war through propaganda. Well, Ukraine is now broken across Dnieper and right close to Crimea, and it's done. Now they're gonna win. Well, that's fine in the internet, but the battle is not just in the internet. It's literally 3D, 2D, 1D, 4D, 5D, on the ground, in the ground, above the ground, around the ground in Ukraine. And so what is really, really actually happening there outside of the internet and your propaganda and the belief structures of people's minds, you're not going to be able to repudiate that forever, because it's going to become obvious when, like it is, you have no more people, no more weapons, no more ammunition for the weapons, and you're essentially there. They cannot go into Iran. They cannot fight the Houthi. They cannot continue to bomb this and that, whether it's the Gaza or anything. The money is getting ready to do the same thing. It's based on a belief, and it's not real. When the people, and they want it to happen and manipulate it, what's called the Great Taking, because they've made the structure of the security transfer to be able to do this instantaneously throughout all of the Western world simultaneously, move the ownership of everything to a very, very, very small group of individuals. So even the oligarchs and the upper people, like the Rockefellers, you think you're going to wind up with anything? You're the chosen, you're the elite. Yeah, you're chosen, all right. Your dessert after the dessert of the dessert. You're that last little cup of Baileys or a little glass of Baileys or a little
wafer thin mint
and a little shot glass. You know? Because they eat their own.
They do.
You are not at the top. Even you're not, if you're remotely terrestrial here, you have one strand of genetic or one allele that's from here for the last 200 million years. Your dessert, because they are not. And the ones at the top, when they're done, you're next. All the way up the chain until that's the top is all that's left. And they run this ball completely. And that cannot be done because of the nature of this ball. It's a donut. And the middle part of the donut is clean and alive. The Garthans and all that are involved with this for many eons have not been involved. They are involved because they realize, like the Alliance, they now have no choice.
Yeah.
They must become involved. And so the lower dumps are being taken out and they're moving their way up into the upper ones and the tunnels and everything. It's coming down and up everywhere. The Alliance is so vast and winning, and they will win as long as they do it carefully and with the highest respect that they can, as surgically clean as they can, then they will win. But if you're going to go, do it now, I want it now, stop, take this pedophile group out and that one and do this and do this and do this everywhere at once, then we lose.
Yeah.
Then we lose, and I'm not meaning you lose for the next 100 years or the next million years. You lose till the end of time, till the end of this creation, when it's undone and pulled back into the source. You lose permanent. So do you want to go there? I've been there. You don't want to go there. I'll guarantee you. You don't want to see what that looks like. You don't want to experience what that is like. We need to have the patience and understanding and do the best you can with what you know and try to expand and get your trigger points out of you. Look at everything you think, everything you say, practice remembering. One of the most powerful things you can do. Practice pulling up names of people you knew when you were 3, phone numbers of homes that aren't even existent anymore, places and things you see to the detail. I sit there at a time, go into a park and look and open your eyes, your ears, your senses, and not think about what you're seeing. Witness it, record it in your beingness in infinite detail so that you learn to store moments perfectly. And that'll allow you to retrieve the moments you've lost and to learn the nature of who you really and what you really are, so you know when something's in you or talking to you, influencing you, and it's not you, and it is not have your highest interest at all. and then you can get yourself clean. And people keep asking me, what can we do? That's what you can do. Be the change.
And
That means
give yourself,
learn to be respectful and kind and truthful. And you cannot be that if you're not that within.
yeah,
And it may look like people who are being that way are not. They may be looking harsh because you may be Mark Ultra and you don't even know it. And
right.
they seem to be very harsh, and you may want to create a group to attack them of other people that were in their group that fell out of their group or got out of their group. And you don't like that because da da da. And they took your life earnings, or not life earnings, or you were getting paid by them or whatever. And you're angry. But in the long term, that service to self, your anger, your servicing anger, revenge. Revenge is a double-edged sword, and it'll cut you. It's going to cut you worse than whatever you're coming after, because you're not in love and service to others. You're in service to your anger. And your anger is not coming from you. It's coming from an archon, or a high-level being that's feeding off the loosh you're creating. You're not service to even yourself, really. You're in the process of destroying yourself. You need to, pray for yourself, get yourself clean, and others in your group that are being vengeful. Because the only vengeance is not vengeance, it's a balance. And that is, as they say, vengeance is mine, thus saith the Lord. It's not vengeance. Balance is mine.
Yeah.
The balance is up to the Creator. And we need to come into that balance. So come into that balance by coming, a message from an angel is very eloquent, where a man had an angel sit down next to him and goes, you are forgiveness. You are freedom. You are love. You are this moment. Learn to be in the moment as much as you can. This is what we can do. I was recently asked several times on many interviews. This is the best thing you can do to help the Alliance. And then use your gifting. If you're a musician, or you're a writer, or you're a storyteller, or you know how to lay down Schluter and do tiling, share that, and you could save one person's frustrations. That means one archon doesn't get fed that day. It may mean one child doesn't get killed.
Right, or beaten, or what, yeah.
Which means that will reach out through time as a wave. And it means a wave of light and love and compassion instead of the opposite. This is the things we can do to help the Alliance and to help God, the Creator of all things, to fix this world. Stop being the problem.
And give ourselves the gift of time to do the work, to do the introspective work.
Yep, but start now. And stop waiting for a handout.
Yeah, and you don't have to wait for the perfect moment.
Right. Don't wait for Nasara to come along to give you the money. Get out and start this moment now. Draw up a plan of what you're going to do and how. Now, don't mean to keep reiterating the story of the homeless man who was a heroin addict, but he pulled himself out of being a heroin addict. No gift other than me making a phone call for him and telling him the creatures you're talking to that other people don't see, you think are your friends, are not. That's why you're living in a box out in an alley behind a building. So pull yourself up. You can do this. You can trust yourself. And he did. And he has him and his son, who he found later and got out of being a heroin addict, now have an LLC with 40 who were homeless. They bought an entire building, they renovated the building, and it's continuing. They didn't wait for somebody to give them a handout. Somebody gave them a hand up, and then I called the owner of the building. He had taken a pallet apart with a rock and pounded straight in the nails and made a floor to lay down in there. And, vouch for him, to the owner, give him a day and some wood and some tools and see what he can do, and go day by day. And, and trust him enough, keep an eye on him, but trust him enough and make sure he's cleaning himself up and doing all of these things. Give him, a day to work and 4 or 5 days to detox from the heroin. And he went cold turkey and he pulled himself up. So whoever you are, you can do it. Trust yourself, but be strong with yourself and get busy now. Stop waiting for Nassar and a handout of money or this or that or a grant or something else. Do it now.
Yeah.
The time is now. It's not tomorrow.
And service looks like
It's not going to be out. Precisely.
service is literally, people ask, oh, I don't
So
want my
thank
9 to 5 or whatever, but service is so many things. Service is being a cashier at a grocery store to help people get what they need to sustain themselves. Service looks like many things to many people, and we often think it's some lofty thing that I can't attain, but service is boots on the ground.
Now, it's like the movie Peaceful Warrior with Nick Nolte. And be wise.
Yeah.
Knowledge is one thing, but wisdom is using that knowledge in service to others. And he was like, washing windows on a car?
Mm-hmm.
The highest form of service to others is helping others and doing for others. Yeah, service to self is important to get yourself straight. He sat there an entire night on a beat up car trying to figure this out, of where really, really good answers come from. What's a good answer to the big mysteries of life, and my mysteries, and so reaching down into yourself and figuring out that it's not about the goal, it's about the journey, and the journey starts now, wherever you are, whenever you are. You decide to do it now. The journey has to start with the first step. If you're sitting there waiting, you're not taking any steps. That can go on forever. It's like celestial navigation. The guy in one of the pieces they do, which is an amazing series of CDs. You can find them on YouTube. And he said, "Yep, you had all these plans. What happened? You were going to do this and you're going to do that, but you couldn't do this till you did that. You couldn't do that till you did this, and you kept waiting, and nothing ever happened." And years later, well, I can't do this till I do that. I can't do that till no. Figure out, write it down, and then get started. Absolutely. And it will grow because you don't know. Grow in ways organically. That's how God works. Ways you don't know. People will show up, things will happen out of the blue. It's like the story, Michael Jacobs said, where, the guy trusted God. He was in a flood, the house was flooding, and he says, people came, hurry, come on. No, I'm trusting God. Next guy shows up in a boat, and he's up to his knees. Get in the boat. Nope, I trusted God. Then he's up on the roof, and a helicopter comes and lowers a basket down. Get in the basket. Nope, I trusted God. And then he's dead and he's in heaven. And he goes, "God, I thought I trusted you. Where were you?" "Well, I kept sending people, but you." When it comes and it shows up and it's trying to help you in a way to save you, take action. If it's something that's filling into you, what your idea of continue on to do good things and do things you could do to help others and help yourself too, take action on, but take action on. And not sit there and wait for some miracle to show up, a grant of $1 million or $10,000 or whatever. No, make it happen now. Do a GoFundMe, get people, go out and talk, do what you got to do. So thank you for your patience, Laura.
Thank you. Oh, this was wonderful. I thank you immensely for all of this information. And anybody listening to this, I'm going to put the Gene Decode's information where you can find out more about him. And also he has his Blessed for Service and other places where you may find that you can be of service. But just know that service starts with us, it ends with us, but it also is about every one of us. So thank you very much, Gene. I appreciate your time. Thank you, and have a good afternoon.